Today we're going to go over how to prepare for an audition very quickly. This is not a replacement for long-term preparation, but if you're in a pinch or you just got new audition material and you want to know how to approach it, you can apply this to that as well. So for my example, I'm going to be playing something relatively easy. I've looked at this a very small amount, but I'm not prepared on it. So I'm going to play it once, do the step-by-step process, and then hopefully by the end I play it again and we can see that difference. So although that was technically kind of a sight read, I'm familiar with this tune. First suite in E flat, second movement. Yeah, so I've heard this before. But I played it really boring, and so hopefully by the end of this video, I'm gonna play it a lot better. So step one is to play everything very slowly until you can sing it perfectly. This approach is a very quick way to fine-tune what needs to happen on a physical level while engaging musically, making sure that you're listening and you're locking in every single note perfectly. So even just sitting on that first note for me, a little bit of vibrato, I realized I could have been much more resonant and relaxed. And vibrato is your best friend when you're going through this part of the process. I find it really helps me find exactly where the note just has the best tone. Now that I finished, somewhat of a sub-phrase there, I'm gonna see if I actually know that information. I'm gonna try and sing it. Da, 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 da. So I actually don't know it quite as well as I thought I did. And this can also help to do solfege if you know solfege. Do, re, la, la, di, do, la, so, mi, re, do, re. And it's not exactly locked in, but it's good enough for this purpose. And that is the third on that high A. So I might try and play that third valve instead, since it can be lowered a little bit anyways, in context. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna write down third valve, and it's good, like, if you're not making markings throughout this process, you're doing something wrong, because you can go from like a level 2 audition to level 10 or level 9 just by doing this process correctly and making sure that you're not skipping any steps and relying on your memory. Make sure you're writing stuff down. I suck at transitioning from head voice to chest voice, but that's okay. And it's really important that you're not just going through the motions when you do this. This is the time to really pay attention. Like, am I really gonna just be okay with those 3 notes? Sounding like really mediocre. Just, when it's not sounding exactly how you want, just take a second, slow it down, maybe sing it if necessary, and find exactly where that great tone is, because you're never gonna get it in context if you don't get it really slow. even though we're mostly slurring everything with vibrato and good tone, if you do have dynamics written in, you might as well do those general dynamics just so that you can start calibrating that as well on a physical level. So there's a chance that what I'm doing right now is easier than what you have to prepare, but it's still going to be the same process, and it just might take you a little bit longer for those more tricky little licks. So step 2 is technically a little break. If possible, find a recording or 2 or 3 of what you have to play, and we're going to listen to that. If you don't have a recording, that's okay. Skip to step 3, but this is really important to getting your performance to the next level. So step 4 is going to be combining having listened to those recordings and just using your eyeballs and looking at the page and making any markings that might or might not be necessary. If you hear them taking certain breaths, taking certain stylistic choices that you didn't notice off of rip, make sure you're writing that down. Any dynamics, especially the breath marks, because you want that phrasing to be really obvious, especially if it's something known like this. That was a breath. And this one actually says solo, so just because it says mezzo forte, it's a soloistic mezzo forte, so I have to keep that in mind. It's a beautiful, slightly bigger. Another breath. These are really obvious breath marks, but it's good to go through the process anyways to make sure that we're not making any stupid mistakes. So probably a little bit bigger there. We're going to mark that. And it's not written, but the staccato separated feel in that recording anyways started a little bit earlier, so I'm going to steal that. Now that I made the initial obvious markings, I'm going to go back and listen one more time to get sort of, these dynamic markings. I need the crescendos and how the phrase goes, so I'm going to listen again. And what I'm listening for specifically is the peak of the phrase. So in general, it seems like most of it has like what I was saying, sort of this, although at the beginning I will say it does start off kind of da dum ba dum ba ba dee be da dee da ba 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 da dum, back off, da dum ba dum ba ba dee ba ba da 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 ba 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 dum ba. So those sort of upper notes would be sort of the climax, and then that middle section, ya da be ba da da dee ya da ba 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 dum bum. Don't want to back off on those lower notes, and that whole sort of phrase there is kind of the meat and potatoes a little bit. So I'm going to make sure I put some markings there. A little arrow here and there, helps me visualize just moving the sound. So step 5 is going to be making sure we actually understand that information fundamentally, and we're going to go ahead and sing it in the style and tempo and all of that. Da dum ba da 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 da. And it'd be, sorry, I cut myself off, but it might help if you want to like conduct yourself a little bit and kind of, imagine your band director giving you this, because that can kind of help you take things to the next level and unlock things that you normally don't use when you're auditioning alone. Da 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 dee da ba be ba da dum ba dum ba da 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 ba ba da 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 dum ba dum ba da 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 dee da 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 dee da dum bum bum. So I'm not going to try again because I don't want to sit here all day. Ideally, I would spend a little bit more time refining things, but we're just going to say that's a pass. So step 6 is going to be basically playing it through in style, and we're going to be paying attention to where those problem areas are. The best, but that's all right, because step 7 is going to be finding those problem areas, and we're going to go back and do them slowly again. So for me, let's see. Yeah, that was just a slight tonal thing that I can work on. Best to do it a few times until you feel as comfortable as you did with everything else. And next was this middle section, especially when I went down to the lower register, it just wasn't quite ringing the same. Honestly, half of that problem is my third valve slide being slow, which is my own fault. So now that we've worked on fine-tuning those little problem areas, we're just going to make sure that we can play those individually in style. Oh yeah, that was much better. Yeah, we'll take that. All right, now it's time to play the entire excerpt, and I'm gonna show up side by side, so hopefully it's improved from our first take. So yeah, maybe my one take at the beginning and my one take at the end weren't that different from each other. I think if you're playing something on the more difficult side that you're less familiar with, since I've heard this so many times, although I've never really played it, I think that will be like a bigger difference doing this process. And I know for me, I've gone from trying to read something that isn't really sight readable to being able to kind of play it audition ready in like literally under 30 minutes, just basically doing this. So again, I should have chosen something a little bit more difficult so that there would be a bigger difference between the beginning and the end of the video, but you know, this is real. I was using this video as an excuse to also practice that excerpt that, you know, I hadn't looked at yet, and I didn't really plan on practicing much before the audition I'm, you know, doing for it. So that was my excuse to do that. When you go through this process, make sure you don't rush through that slow playing and making sure every note has good tone. That's where the huge progress comes from in a short amount of time. Let me know in the comments what you think about this process, or if you tried it and it worked great or didn't work at all and I need to make a whole new video about this. If this video helped you, please leave a like. It helps so much. And if this channel is new to you, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next video.